Hello there. This is an impromptu stream. Just working on a project for IMVU. Hang on, let me stop this escape. Just working on a project for IMVU that highlights another issue that we have to work around if we're using Blender. So this stream is just working through that basically. So it's another one of those. Here's a problem. How do we solve it? Streams. The problem being, now which one is it? So the item being put together is a little bumper cart, or I don't know what our cousins, fellow Americans, would call these things. But anyway, it has a series of poses. So we have one action, and there are 10 different poses that the avatar, in the same way that the avatar blends between default poses when it's standing. So at the moment she's got her arms, hands behind her back, but she switches or blends between different poses. The furniture item is supposed to be set up to do that, but watch what happens. So even though at the moment these don't have, well they do, they have loops, but if we change the loop duration, it doesn't. So each of these poses is a separate animated sequence, or separate XAF exported from Blender. So let me just quickly do this. So this particular file, or this particular version, each of these sequences reference the same action, but at different points in the action, or in Blender I should say, at different points in Blender. Where is that file gone? A different pose is... where's the file? Right, so I think that's the one. But I need to change this to poses all. So what we've got down at the bottom here in the action editor is a different pose every 5 frames. We don't need anything more complicated than that, because these are static poses, so they don't animate per se. So the active frames, there are four frames, or 4 duplicate frames, which is the actual pose, and then there's just a transition to the next pose. So in theory, what we should be able to do with this, to solve this problem of being able to, because the product, what the product is supposed to do is randomly, when we set up the action ensemble, the ensembles and the action parameters, what we can do is set the after playing section so that the action randomly selects one of these poses. But for some reason it doesn't do that when you lock them into... oh, better not be doing it now. No, it's just not doing. So it does this weird I don't know what it's doing actually, but what it should do is it should toggle. I need my annotation tool again. So we've got 1 frame, 2 frames, 3. Well, these are all poses. So imagine these red markers are just poses. So what we've done, oh, color change. What we've done is set up the start and end keyframes so that we're essentially using 1, 2 frames. And each of these sequences has the same setup. So the pose and the following frame so that the static pose loops. So essentially it's just looping across 2 frames. So there are just 2 frames. But for some reason IMVU ignores this, and when it's swapping between each of the ensembles, what it's doing is ignoring all of this and playing the full frame range. And it does it no matter what it's swapping to. So let's say it plays this first, it might play this one second, this one third, fourth, and it'll play the full range of each segment of the action in Blender before it actually swaps and switches to the next pose. And the problem with that is it does this stupid thing. And there isn't a solution for this, because we can't with Blender, close that, with Blender, so that's with each one is, so that's 100 loops at 1 frame, so that's 100 frames. So you could extend these to be, oh hi Frenzy, so we could extend these a little bit and maybe put 4, so each pose changes, whoops, that's not 4, that's 9, that'll be 14, that'll be 19, 24, 29, and this will make absolutely no difference except, whoops, so it's 39. This will make absolutely no difference except to increase the length or the duration of the sequence as it plays. So when it locks on to one of the poses, it'll hang on that pose. Yeah, early for Frenzy is just basically pointing out that we're very early today. Yes, we are very early. So it'll swap, and when it locks onto one of these animations, one of these poses, it'll stay there for longer, but it still does this spasm, for want of a better word. It spasms between each of the poses. And the reason for doing the file this way is that we can't export. So oh no, hang on. Let's do one of these ones. So if we exit, so this is the pose. These frames, so that's frames 1 to 5, and then frame 10 is a reset. So if I remove that, so if that reset didn't exist, if there were no change from the pose to something else, doesn't matter what it is, the FBX exporter, and Cal3D does this as well, doesn't recognize that there's a pose associated with the armature. So we have to have the reset in there. We have to have this reset. But the problem with that is that obviously when IMVU is toggling between these poses as per the outline previously where we had all the frames marked, it plays the entire duration. So that is 10 frames. So when it swaps to another pose, it'll play the remaining 5 frames, which means that the pose reverts to that. So it'll do, that's what version is that? Was that 3? I've already got that open too. You guessed it, Frenzy. That is exactly what this is. I was wondering if someone would guess. It is, yes, an ice bike or an ice rider. So basically a bumper cart. So well done. Oh, that's got a broken pose. But it's the same thing again. But this time, with this version, each of the poses is a separate animation. And when it swaps between each of them, the avatar quickly reverts to the reset pose before it takes on the new pose, because it's playing the entire sequence instead of being what's the word, specific isn't the right word, but essentially being specific and obeying the loop start. Instead of being very specific and obeying the loop start and end frames that are set, when the poses swap or switch, it's playing the full sequence. So that's instead of it being 4 frames long, it's playing 9 frames actually, because do you get a cookie? Maybe you'll get a cookie later. So it's playing 9 frames, so it overrides the fact that there's a start and end loop. So this is a hesitant to say a bug, but it's an oversight. It's an oversight within the system, that it's overriding the frames that are set and playing the full sequence, and that causes problems for Blender users. This is irrelevant for Max users, but you'll see that the pose reverts to the static when it swaps. The arms quickly stick out to the side and it takes on a new pose. And there isn't a solution for that using Blender. I've tried different versions or different variations, and it doesn't work. There's nothing that we can do. Whoops, the arms have gone a bit wonky there. Nothing we can do solves this problem, because Blender needs the reset pose in order to export something to the FBX file, and the Cal3D does this as well, from what I've tested. So the only option, which ideally wanted to avoid actually, because what it means then is, because what we're doing essentially is multiple poses automatically switching. So we've got 10. The system is automatically selecting which ones it wants to play, because the workaround for that, whoops, wrong file, wrong program I mean, the workaround for that is to use multiple seat nodes for each pose. So that now means instead of using one seat node and having IMVU randomly select the pose that, well, it just randomly select a pose. So instead of having one seat node, so there's just one handle when the item is selected, there's just one handle. In order to sort this out, you have to now have multiple seat nodes. So that means a furniture item with this many seat nodes, or however many seat nodes there are for the item, which is going to be an interesting thing to try and use in client. So that's what this next, well, that's what this stream is just going over this process of setting this item up with multiple seat nodes and positioning the handles. I don't know how clear that is. Hang on, let me switch to the that's a bit better. So each of these handles now has to have well, basically have to be positioned relative to the furniture item in a way that is going to be useful. So there's the object. We've got the initial handle already in place. Fortunately, handles and seat nodes don't necessarily need to be aligned as they are when they are available in the starter file. The only critical thing is keeping the distance between the catcher and pitcher, otherwise the avatars don't line up when they're doing interactive actions. So now comes the tedious bit of renaming all these nodes. So that's what this stream is. That's what this stream is going to be. So where's handle 02? Oh, that's the O2. That's the, just rename that. So Blender is automatically renaming these nodes as they are duplicated, but for them to be usable in IMVU, we have to give them a specific name that's associated with the set. We have to rename all of them, but just doing the handles at the moment, so that's 4. So as with the Harter bike and the witch's traffic cone broomstick, oops, is that 06? When it comes to making more complicated products or more complicated projects, there is a, I was going to say failure, but it's not a failure. It's an oversight, because again, as is always the case, IMVU was made using 3D Studio Max, so everything that we do is subject to the way that 3D Studio Max does things, which don't always work for Blender users, which means we have to find a way to work around things. I'll leave that for now because these all have to be custom. So instead of being, oh no, it's already captured the name, so that's all right. So that's seat 10. So when you're duplicating custom nodes, the original one was set up and named the way that it should be, which you can't quite see on screen, but it's seat 01 Dodgem. So to save yourself some time, what you can do is set up your original or your initial set these up so that they're all named correctly relative to a custom pose, and then just duplicate the set. That way you're not having to retype too much. And you can rename nodes, or rename anything actually, by either clicking the name input field you can rename things either by object properties, so you select the item input field, or you can double click in the outliner and rename things there. Either or is just preference. There's no advantage to one or the other really. As Frenzy was just pointing out. Oh, and also what you can do is make sure the excuse me, make sure the parenting relationship is also set up. These are parented to the root bone. So down here, oh, it's a little tiny one. I don't want that one, the big one. So in object properties, we've got the root node, and again that means that when you're duplicating these sets, they'll all already automatically be parented to the root node, which is off screen. It's hidden on another layer, but it means that when you duplicate it, it copies across all the properties that are associated with the nodes that you are duplicating. So if you select the handle, it's parented to root. And that again, time saver. Where do we get to? 5. Six. 7. Whoops. 8. 9. 10. And of course, because these, oh, that's already been done. And because these are custom nodes, well, they're not custom nodes, custom seat poses, or nodes to be associated with a custom seat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, do you not have an external USB drive, Frenzy, or something you can back everything up to? So these are custom seat nodes, or a seat node set, or avatar spot, or whatever you want to call them. These are associated with custom poses. So the seat node has to have a custom seat name. So that's seat, whatever the number is, and then a name specific to the pose. Yep, no worries. Coffee away. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and you're asleep. Do the same for, let's catch a picture. 02. Yes, and there is not a quick way of doing this. We have to do this manually. Whoops. Got to make sure that the format is correct as well. So that's picture, whatever the number of the picture is, period, and then sitting or standing. It's 5, 6. Otherwise IMVU will automatically replace it, which may mean the avatar appearing somewhere unexpected, because it doesn't always get that right when it assumes 9, 10, and you're asleep. Oh, there's a double check the names to make sure there aren't any rogue periods. And it's a shame that you can't make the size of the text larger relative to how close you are zoomed in. It's always the same size. It would be nice. Same with the 3D widget. I don't know if they've fixed that in Blender 2.8, but it would be nice if you could increase the size of the display of the names of things. That looks okay. Let's see. Right, so there's the object. The first thing to do, I guess, is just position the handles. So there are 10. So let's just see how this works. So I'm holding the control key down to keep the object snapped to the grid. I wonder where we can put that one. Okay, so let's And what we're trying to do is allow enough space that the user is going to be able to click on these. When the item is loaded into IMVU, into the client, we have to allow enough space for the user to save the file whilst I am remembering. We need to allow enough room for the user to be able to cleanly mouse over and click these avatar spots. So the handles are really just the important part. Copy of your box. Oh, you mean your well, just email it again, Frenzy. That's fine. If I don't know if it's come through or not, or it won't be the latest version I've got anyway. So email it again, and it'll be. I'll take a look at it. So the handles are the critical element of this, because these are the things that users are going to be able to click. The seat nodes, they can literally all occupy. Whoops. So before I do that, I need to double check that they are all parented to root node, which they are. We can see that dotted or dashed line is the relationship line between the objects. So holding Control down, just move those so that they are positioned in the same place as the initial set, because the pose uses that same position. And this is one of the reasons why, when you are just moving things around so that you can make room for editing and manipulation, you want to snap to the grid so that you can snap to the grid back. So these were moved initially where they are now whilst being snapped to the grid, which means that when they are moved back, holding the Control key down and snapping to the grid will mean that they will align exactly where they started off. Whereas if you just move them using the widget and just randomly positioning them, it can then be a bit tricky to get them aligned, which may mean that your poses are off sync or out of sync. In other words, when you come to use your poses or set the poses, they will be offset by however much the nodes might be offset. Right, so save this. Double check. Need to select the root node so we can check the relationships. That's the root node. So we can check the relationship of all the nodes and everything that's connected up in the outliner. And it'll... Oh, that's the mesh. Oh no, that's the... Well, for later, that is an animation control. So where's the mesh gone? Oh, it's connected to Dodgem. Right, okay, so let's export. So select everything, shift, deselect the avatar, and then select a node so that something is the active object. It doesn't matter which node it is. Then we can just export DXF, not DXF, FBX for selected objects, apply modifiers, disable add if bones animation, just deselect those although there are no animations associated with it at the moment, and just export. Right, so I should now be able to import furniture, so that's the default furniture item, import FBX. So what we're doing is loading the FBX that we've just exported, which is number 4. So this loads the FBX into the exporter, the importer rather, and the importer shows us the properties that are associated with the FBX file. So change the scale, deselect, rename. This causes problems for Blender users, so always deselect that. So apply scale 0.01, Dodgem mesh ID is 0, and materials, and then import. And there is, oh, and it's got all the spots in the right place. Excellent, Smithers. So we can click on any one of these and the avatar will be in the same spot. So all we need to do now is set up 10 actions. So for this we want, we want seat 01 Dodgem. So I'll just do this one. So we want same ensemble. Ooh, so now, so let me just apply that. What we have to do now, that's nice. So what we have to do now is import the pose file. And this may be the wrong version, but I'll import this anyway just for the sake of argument. Where is it? I think it's that one, 6. So this will get us the. So this is where a lot of people trip up with Blender and importing poses. When you import a pose, if you've done it correctly and you've exported the file correctly from Blender, you'll get the select skeletal root box. And if you click on the skeleton root, it'll give you a number of different options. The two main ones for skeleton or avatar skeletons are 88 bones and 10 meshes, and 86 bones and 10 meshes. You always want to select, if it's an avatar pose, 86 bones. The 88 bones is, there are 2 extra bones placed. One of them comes from the, I think it may be the Z head, the bone that's used for pets, but also the root node that's included with the FBX file. That acts as the root for the entire FBX file, which counts as a bone or as an element of the skeletal hierarchy. So there are always 88. So always choose the one that says 86, and it'll show the for a pose at least anyway, it'll show all the bits of the mesh that are associated with it, and then just click the configure FBX and it'll load up the file. So we deselect all the meshes. We don't need any of those. We deselect all the materials, textures. We don't need those. I'm just going to deselect those two because we don't need those two either. But we want pose, bumper. Well, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10, and it doesn't always list them numerically or alphabetically. So apply scale 0.01, that's fine. So this is bringing in just the pose data, or the these bits. Oh, that's not the pose file, hang on. Let me just open another instance of, whoops, wrong one. Oh, you're right. I haven't exported the corrected version yet. So what this is doing is importing all these separate actions, which is what we want. Right, 0.01 import. But because we have imported something with a skeleton, apply changes, it's reset the furniture item. So we have to go back into config and select the furniture skeleton. And that now brings back the proper skeleton. So action, so we create an action, seat 01, so this is associated with the initial or seat. So that'll be the node or the seat nodes that are associated with the handle that's in the middle there. Seat 01, dodge 'em, that indicates that it's custom pose. It's for the avatar. We want to, excuse me, we want to pick the same ensemble or the same animated sequence. So in our list of animations now, we have something we can select. So we want bumper 01. Want this to replace. Loop for infinitely, 0, start at frame 1, end at frame 4. Don't need blend in. And apply, and we should have, so this is where it gets tricky. Whoops. Of course it's not doing it now. Just seat 01. Let's try it this way. Dagnabbit. Let's save this file. See if this is a IMVU cache issue. So close the file. And create mode, and then reopen. So let's try that again. Nope, it's not doing it now. Why is it not doing it? Good grief, Charlie Brown. Capture, handle. Yeah, that's right. Cedo1. Good grief. This is always the way. Copy. Paste. Yeah, that's the same. So let's try exporting the latest version. So what I'm going to do here is export the updated pose file, which was not. So export that separately, FBX 7. So to ensure that Blender and IMVU understand the FBX file properly, instead of what you would normally do, which is select the armature and then export to FBX with selected objects active, what you can do to force Blender to export everything correctly is export the entire contents of the scene, and that will include all the actions that are in the project, or in theory it's supposed to. So export FBX, make sure selected objects this option down here, this damnable thing, make sure that's set or deselected. Geometry, we don't need any of those. We don't need the add leaf bounds. For the animation, we need to deselect NLA strips and force start end keying. Deselect those and then export. Did that crash or did it do its thing? No, it did its thing. Right, so that's imported, exported. So now we've got to import that. Load FBX. Seven. And we get the select skeletal root dialog. 86 bones. Configure. 0.01. Deselect meshes, deselect materials, and just deselect those two because we don't need them. But we've also got, as well as the list of items, it's also telling us the number of frames, or the start, well, they call it in and out, but that's start and end frames. So there are 9 frames. And then just import. Yeah, it does, Frenzy. It drives. I mean, this is the issue. When you want to do things that are a bit more complicated, if you're just making straight, I mean, if this bike only had a single pose, none of this would be an issue. It's only when you start to do more complicated items, when you want to have more poses or more options or more this or more that, that these problems crop up, because the system doesn't cater to Blender at all. So we are essentially just always working around the problems, or working around the way that IMVU uses predominantly 3D Studio Max, 3D Studio Max FBX, even though FBX is pretty well supported. When it comes to these complicated objects, it trips up. It's not doing it now. That is so annoying. Let's try creating a new one. number 2. Because these are all these animations are essentially the same, so we can loop it for infinitely and use the same frame range. Dag nabbit, it's not going to do it now. And we can tell that, well, we can tell at least the handles are parented to the root node because they are visible. If they weren't visible, all the handles would all be in the same spot because IMVU would ignore the ones that are in the actual file, in the project file, and it would automatically insert them itself. So let's just create as a seat 03. And it would be nice if we could, although I do understand that they are implementing this, being able to copy actions, and so that we don't have to keep remaking them all the time. Go 6. Let's see if any of these are actually working at all. Nope. That's crazy. So 6 seat 07 dot dodgem. One and 4. Just 2 more to go after this. We're supposed to be able to. I wonder if this shouldn't matter. I wonder if the fact that dodgem is the same extension. Oh, right. Yeah, reinstalling Windows, getting everything up to date these days is what, a full day, 2 days work now. So yeah, back in the old days, in the olden days, you could have Windows installed and updated in 2 hours. Right, so the only difference is the skeletal animation, and that should be playing, but they are not. None of them are working, so let's just save the file and try closing again. Because they work. The poses works. The poses work, and the file works because they've been set up. This is just using one action, I think, though. Yeah. Oh, that's why. Got the triggers wrong, didn't I? So, actions. Now, because we've used, I wonder if this will work. So, stance dot dodgem seat 01. Nope. So what we have to do, because this differs from because unlike the Harter bike, so let me just load up the Harter bike. Where is the Harter bike? Where is the Harter bike? Oh, it was called Twitch. There we go. Right, so unlike the Harter bike or furniture items that trigger an animated sequence, of course the morph animations are broken with, but this trigger stance.dodgem-seat01, you use that to trigger a furniture animation from a specific furniture node. So because we are triggering avatar poses, we can't use that, so we have to go back into the Blender file and rename seats so that they are unique, because the stance trigger is essentially trying to, well, in order for the poses to be triggered, we have to use stance dot and then the seat node. Whoops. But we can't use the same trigger on all the seat nodes, so we have to make them all unique. Otherwise, it can't differentiate between poses and the nodes. So once we've done that, so that's version 4, so save that and re-export. So select everything, deselect the avatar, select one of the nodes just to make sure that something is active, then export again. Selected objects, apply modifiers, deselect, blah de blah blah, export. So re-import, so just save this. Oh, get rid of that. Apply, save, and then re-import. .jump 4. Zero, 0.01. Deselect or deactivate, and then import. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, double check. Right, so we should now be able to dodge them. That's 01. So hopefully this will work. Oh, come on. Do you need to press apply changes every time you change something like that? Stance 02. Three. Yeah, yes, Miyako, welcome. Friends, you said the same thing about an hour ago. So, yes, it is too early. A 6. Oh no, is that 05? What's... That's 04. That's 5. Oh 06. Yeah. Oh 07. 08. Oh 09. Do we do 10 or 010? Just 10. Yay! So that's what should have happened. So now we should have poses for each of the spots. So just quickly test and then, right, so let's save this, save. Oh, so my counting slowly is 1, 2, 3, and then asleep isn't helping, I guess. Yes, so don't operate heavy machinery. Right, so we have our furniture item with a ton of, whoops, selectable poses. Because we cannot set up an automated toggle for Blender exported FBX files. Way. So yes, friends, you were quite right. You guessed it right. This is an ice bike, or whatever you would call it. Ice bumper cart. So there we go. A fun little item that's we have to do it this way round for, well, we don't have to do it this way around, I suppose. I mean, if you want to have selectable poses, you would do it this way anyway. But if you were wanting to have the automatically, the way that it was automatically toggling, so what did this one? Right, so we can't set up. So for those joining us now, cough cough, we can't export something that's going to toggle between poses without doing this weird reset pose, because of the way that IMVU overrides the pose when it's toggling or switching between poses. There's something within IMVU's system. I mean, whether they'll address that sort of issue now being raised at this point is neither here nor there, I suppose. So to produce an item that has a set of poses, because Blender users can't use this select pick new ensemble, so it randomly selects between a set of animations, we have to do it the hard way, which is a furniture item with a heck of a lot of furniture spots. So we have to do it this way around. So the next bit, which we won't be doing today, will be just to create a little a separate. Oh, actually, I wonder if that would work. Yeah, there are two ways of doing this. Let me just. Oops, that's the wrong one. I want insert the widget. So this furniture item will be animated, but there are two ways of doing it. We can either animate the object itself, the furniture item itself. So whenever one of these poses is clicked, we do a similar thing to the heart of bike, where it plays a sequence and animates. So the bike itself just bobs up and down. But we can also set this up so that it's just a standard furniture item that's placed onto another furniture item that contains an animated track. So you might see this in some rooms where race cars or race tracks, where a track has been embedded into the room. And the furniture item, there's a furniture node that's animated, and it just... Oh, thanks. Thanks, Miyaka. That's very kind of you. 100 cherry diamondy thingy majigs. Yeah, diamonds, I guess. What are they? Crystals. Well, 100 of those pointy things. So we can do this so that we either animate the furniture item itself, or we can leave this as a standard furniture item and just create a track and animate the track, which itself is a furniture item. But then you get into trouble with plopping furniture items on top of furniture items. Yeah, purple shiny thingies. So I won't do this today because it's a completely different project, but those are the two options. We can either animate the furniture item, or we can create another furniture item that's separate, so you can have... The advantage of doing it that way is that so the advantage of doing it that way is that, so there's track 1, there's track 2, and there's track 3. You can create different tracks, and it's easy to do. It's easy to create tracks because those are completely separate objects or separate furniture items. Whereas trying to integrate these tracks with the furniture item starts to get complicated. And one of the things that this also means is that if you create your standard furniture item with your poses, as we've done, it means that other people can create their own random tracks, and they should still be able to use your furniture item. And the tracks are relatively straightforward to create. So that's something to keep in mind when you're making items, is that you don't always have to include specific animations, or you don't have to make your items do certain things all the time. Because if you leave a bit of... if you don't do that, but keep them as standard items, it allows room for other people to create things that accommodate the items and gives them the opportunity to create something fun for themselves. So there we go. Could even do a two-person one of these with someone standing on the back there. But that would get really complicated. So there we go. A furniture item with multiple poses, multiple selectable poses, using our standard handle spots. Might actually do that. Actually, is put a pose on the back there, so that may be the person that's make that animated. That would be the pose, an animated pose of someone scooting, or what's the word, skipping, pushing the ice cart along. So it gives the impression that it's being pushed along. That'll be for another stream, I guess. So yes, so that was interesting. Trying to work around a problem, or trying to find a solution to an issue that's present within IMVU because of the way that IMVU works with FBX files, for at least whereas Blender's concerned. Trying to find a way around the problem, and the solution is just generally just to keep everything as separate. That's not quite the right word. So rather than combining everything and trying to get it to toggle between poses, which doesn't work for Blender, just keep them separate so that we've got however many actions that we need associated with the same mesh. Oh, and also if you want to get rid of, because we can't actually remove these, I don't think, what you have to do is make sure that your mesh has three, you can reference the same texture, but you want 3 material slots, because these, I think this is another, I won't call it bug, but another bug that the new create mode is supposed to be fixing. But you have to create an object, a mesh object with 3 materials to override these defaults, because we can't get rid of them. So always remember to remove assets that have not been used. So assets tab, select, whoops, and remove. Apply changes and save. Right, so that was that's what today was for, was just to go over that and show the process of setting up a furniture item with a ton of nodes. So the way we have to accommodate the number of, so we need a set of nodes for each pose that we want associated with the furniture item, and these nodes can occupy the same space as the originals, or as the initial set that we duplicated, and all we need to do is make sure that the handle is somewhere else so that it is selectable, or easily selectable or clickable by the end user, which is why we've spaced them out the way that we have. It makes it easier for them to be clicked on. But it does mean the project can get confusing, because we then have to rename all of these appropriately, making sure that each seat node carries a unique name, or a unique instance of the name that we used in this instance, which was Dodgem. With a numerical append and then export, and that works. So we've got seat 10, dodgem 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off. And as long as they are, the append is unique, it'll work. So place your handles where they can be accessed easily by the end user, export, and then assemble. And that's your item. Right, so call it quits there. Hour and a half. And for the next stream, we'll take a look at assembling or making a little racetrack and ways of doing that, and seeing if that works, so that we create a racetrack as a animated. Can you put furniture on? Oh, but you can't do that, can you? Animate furniture on a that's furniture on a furniture item, isn't it? We can't do that, can we? I like racetracks too. Can we do that? Furniture item on a furniture item. See, that's where, because that's similar to furniture room add-ons, isn't it? Where you are, yeah, furniture with furniture add-on rooms, which are rooms that contain furniture nodes, can be used, they can be added, but the way that, because of the way that IMVU loads items, it can mess up the position of furniture rooms. So it'll be interesting to see if you can add a furniture node to just a standard furniture item that is animated. We'll have to see. That should be an interesting experiment. Because the way that IMVU works is that it loads. Is it supposed to do it sequentially? It's supposed to do it numerically sequentially, so that the items with the lowest numbers, the lowest product IDs, are supposed to load first. But it doesn't always appear to do that, which is why if you plump a furniture room add-on, yes, so so Miyaka's saying it's, I wonder if it's to do with the PID, the product ID. So if it loads sequentially, it wouldn't necessarily be a problem, because anything that, so an item numbered 40 million would load theoretically after item number 4000. But IMVU seems to hiccup on that load order and tends to not always do that reliably. So that's why furniture rooms tend to appear all over the place, and furniture resets to the furniture node 01, which is the root furniture node. Yeah, so the furniture track. So if you were going to do something like this, you'd have to make sure that the track would be the first item loaded into the room, but I don't know how you would guarantee that. So we'll try it and see, because it's, I mean, that would be another interesting, I don't know if IMVU are actually working on that, because that would be quite interesting, being able to, because you could then start doing things like this, as well as just add-on rooms. It would mean that people could create their own racetracks. So we have all these cars and things and cars and vehicles and all sorts of boats and objects that can race, and people could create their own racetracks as just a set of, well, it's just an animated, pardon me, an animated furniture item. Yeah, yes, that would, yeah. The track, Miyaka's just saying that the track would also have a lower falsa. Yeah, so if you, yeah, so if the track was just an animated skeleton, essentially, with a spot that indicates where the start point is, that would be a very low file size, which in theory means that it would load before any of the other items that were of a higher kilobytes. So that might be a way around it. We'll have to try it and see, because that would be quite an interesting thing for, because as I say, you could, people would then be able to make their own racetracks. And not just rooms, but just the tracks, because you could then, in this, for example, in this instance, this is an ice cart or an ice bumper cart. So the room would be any room that basically has a frozen lake on it. And all you would need to do is create a track that would fit within a flat plane, and Bob's your uncle. You've got yourself a racetrack. So that would be interesting. So I have to try that. So remember, folks, the trigger is stance dot, not seat. We use seat for, or do we use seat? No, we don't use seat for anything. So stance dot custom seat name, and then associate it with your XAF file, and it should work. Right, so that's for the next stream then. I'll do some offline investigation and test it out and see how that works, and then that may be for the next stream if it works. So yes, yeah, the stance, blah blah blah. Seat 01, it's for furniture animations, yes. Yeah, stance, blah blah, hyphen, seat 01, yeah. Right, well, on that note, I wrote it backwards. Oh yes, the capital letters. Yes, that's important. So whenever you write your triggers, the stance is always lowercase and your append is always uppercase. So lowercase s stance and then uppercase blah blah hyphen seat 01, and that's for your triggered furniture animations. And then of course for just standard furniture seats it's the same but without the hyphen seat number thing at the end. Right, on that note then, we shall call it quits. Thank you everyone for watching, including the lurkers who lurk as lurkers do. And we shall see you on the next stream. Thanks very much for the shiny pointy things. Miyaka? Oh, that's always the case. Someone comes in just as we're saying goodbye. Wow. That's an appropriate name as well. Wow. Yeah. There's fashionably late, and then there's just everyone rolling their eyes late. Oh, aye, aye. Well, don't worry, WoW. The streams are always archived. We archive everything, so you can watch it when we're done. You can just watch it back. You can watch it back, and watch all the shenanigans. Not quite so live, but yes, if you so make sure you subscribe or follow or click the clicky buttony things. Click the button thingy to subscribe, and then you'll be notified when the stream goes live. Because otherwise, it's what's the word? It's a game of chance for you to find the stream. Oh, woke up late. Yeah. Well, normally the streams are very late at night. Well, for well, good luck with that on Thursday, Miyaka. Yeah, good luck with that. Yeah, so subscribe, click the buttons, do all the thingamajiggeries, and then you'll be notified when the streams go live. We're normally later in the day, but, you know, strike while the iron's hot, as they say. Right, so on that note, we shall end it there, call it quits, and we shall see you on the next stream. So thanks for watching, everyone. Miyaka, WoW, and Frenzy, who's disappeared, and the lurkers who lurk, always lurking. At least they're learning something, I suppose. The lurkers. So we shall see you anon. Bye for now, everyone.